All right, let's talk about React. I know Quinn kind of went over it this morning, but React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Again, React is explicitly just the presentation layer of your application, what you see on the screen. It doesn't do any back-end logic. It's a front-end library. All right. So React is one of many different frameworks. It seems like every month a new front-end framework comes out. There's React up here. There's obviously React Native, which is specifically to developing mobile applications, but using similar architecture as React. There's Vue.js, which is gaining popularity. There's Angular, which is starting to fade out, but it's still really popular. They updated, I think it was like Angular 2 or Angular 3 a few years ago, and it really pissed a lot of people off because it was pretty much having to learn a brand new framework when they updated it. And there's like another one called Svelte. There's a million other ones. There's Backbone.js, Ember.js. There's just a bunch of different ones. But React is the most popular, and that is because it was developed by Facebook, I think back in 2012. And obviously Facebook's this huge company that has a lot of resources, so they have a lot riding on React's success. So there's a lot of resources devoted to the development of React as a library. So where does React fall into what we've been working with regards to the full stack, which is what we've been working in is Django. So in Django, with regards to the model view controller architecture, so in Django, we'd have the models, the view portion of the view were the templates, the HTML templates, and the controller were obviously the views.py file. We're actually going to be replacing where we're doing HTML templates with React. So we're just completely going to be disregarding the templates of Django and going into React and using React. What questions do you have about why we're using React? All right. There's really only 3 libraries that we need, really only 2, but it'll be a lot easier if you use all 3 of these. And what I'm going to do right now is create a React application from scratch without having to use the npx create react app command. So there's only 3 libraries that we really need, which is React, which is the main React library, React DOM, which is the package that provides DOM-specific methods that we can interact with what we see on the screen. And we explicitly use the render method that comes with the React DOM package. And then we have React scripts. It's a package that provides a bunch of default scripts for React. I noticed if you use the npx create react app and you open up the package.json file, in the script, it's React scripts start. So React scripts provides a lot of heavy lifting for us because it also includes Webpack and Babel, which we'll get to in shortly. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and create a React app from scratch. All right. There. So how do I initialize a new NPM package? How do I start or create a new NPM module or package? This goes all the way back to week 1 in Def Grandma.
You're talking about NPM and init?
Yep, exactly. NPM and init. It says, all right, all this is we're creating a package.json file. That's great. The default package name is create or React from scratch. Version, description, entry point. Just click OK. Yes, great. So here I've got my package.json file. I think we talked about this when we were doing Jest with testing JavaScript, writing unit tests in JavaScript. The next thing I need to do is install these three libraries: React, React DOM, and React scripts. How do I install packages in NPM or in JavaScript?
Is that the npm install?
Yep, exactly. So I can npm install React. I can npm install React DOM. So I can do install multiple packages just by doing spaces. And then React scripts. I believe it's React scripts. If it doesn't work, let's see what happens. And watch this package.json file change as everything's starting to get installed. Might take a little while because it's installing all of React, which is a huge library, React DOM, which comes with React, or it's required for the React library.
Is this something that we would have wanted to do in a virtual environment, or does it not matter?
It does not matter. So virtual environments, we won't be creating virtual environments with regards to JavaScript and React. Everything that we need, like npm install, just is the same kind of as like pip install. Everything's going to be in here that we actually need with this package.json file. So we don't actually need a virtual environment because all this stuff isn't going to be installed globally by default. And notice how my package.json file just kind of changed. It added this section dependencies with the three libraries that I just installed: React, React DOM, and React scripts. And it also created this package.json log file. This just holds the versions of the current packages that are installed. So you don't ever want to mess with this file at all. Don't mess with this file at all. All right. Clear. So the next thing I want to do to create my React app is create two directories: a public folder and a source folder. So I can do make directory public. It creates a public folder and another directory called source. I'm just gonna do src for source. And there's my source. And inside my public folder, this is all like the public facing, this is where my HTML is going to reside for my application. So I'm going to create inside my public folder an index.html. And in here, I'm going to just do HTML, create some boilerplate. I can get rid of all this stuff. And now JavaScript or React, React is used for creating single page applications and SPAs. And the reason why they call it a single page application is because there's literally only one HTML file inside of the entire application, and it doesn't actually have to load other HTML files. But there's one thing we need to do is like where we need to tell React, or where do we want to inject all that JSX that Quinn was creating with the components. Where do we want to inject that in our HTML file? So we can literally just create a div, empty div with an ID. Let's just call it root. And it's going to be an empty div. And in our React app, this is where we're going to inject all the components or all of the JSX that we want. So again, that's in the public folder. Now in the source folder, I'm going to create an index.js file. And this is the entry point into our application. So just like for React, I'm gonna have to import a React from the React library. Then I'm gonna also have to import React DOM, which is a method from the React DOM library. And in here, I can call the React DOM class or whatever this is and call that render method. And the render method takes in 2 arguments. The first argument is what do I like, what's the JSX or what HTML do I actually want to inject into this index HTML file? And the second argument is going to be where do I want to inject it at in relation to my HTML file. So in here, I'm just going to do an H1, say, hello, Mike, Platoon. And the second argument I want to pass in is I want to actually grab this element. So I can actually literally say document.getElement by ID. And the ID is root, I believe, right here. So here it's saying, hey, render this React inside of this root element. Just pass whatever is in here inside of this get element by ID, this root element. What questions do you have so far? And you'll never have to create this from scratch again after right now. All right. So the next thing I need to do is actually start.
Sorry, Tom, quick question.
Yep.
Couldn't get to my unmute hotkey fast enough. So I'm just making some side notes here. So in our React project, we have node modules, public and source.
Yep.
And the node modules is like all of our dependencies.
Yes, these are all the packages that were installed when I installed React, React scripts, and React DOM.
Okay. And then the source file, or sorry, the public file first, I guess.
The public file is what's going to store our index.html file, which is like when you're obviously index.html is what displays on the screen. So it needs an index.html file. So this is what that is for.
Okay. And then the source.
And then this
folder.
And then this, yeah, the source folder. This is where everything of our React app is going to be located at inside this source folder.
Okay.
So you're never going to really want to touch the public yet, but you're going to be making all your changes inside the source folder.
Okay, check. Thank you.
Yep. So in my package.json file, now I actually need to create a script to actually start my React app. So I could say start, and luckily I installed the React scripts, which has a script already installed that starts a React server. So I can say React scripts start. Yep. Okay. So now in order to start this server, I can either do npm run test, which would actually run like tests, but there aren't any tests specified, or I can do npm run start, or I can just run npm start and it should start. Let's see if anything happens. All right, it's React script start, unable to detect a target browser. So this is something new. It said, would you like to add the defaults to your package.json file? And if I just say, you know what, yes. Whoop. It added this other section called browser list and just has some different browser configuration stuff. And then it looks like, all right, you can now view React from scratch in the browser, visit localhost 3000. Note that the development build is not optimized to create a production build. Use npm run build. Okay. But if I look over here, I'm on my local host and it says hello Mike Platoon. And that's because in this React render method, it's injecting this h1 tag into the root div of my HTML file. So it's essentially showing right there. If I can open it up, open up the console and see the elements, I can see this script source bundle JS, this chunk JS, this main.chunk JS. This is built for us using React scripts. And then inside of here, I can see my hello Mike Platoon. All right, so now let's actually make our first component. So inside my index or my source directory, I can create a component or a new file called app.js. And inside my app.js, I can create let's create a functional based component. So the first thing I need to do is do const app. So I'm going to name it. And it could be arrow function. You can create it using an arrow function or just by using just function. So I can, for this specific component, I'm just going to create an arrow function. And again, these functional based components, all they are, they're just normal functions. Think of just a def grandma function or like 99 bottles function. It's literally just a function. But the only thing different about it is it returns JSX, which is it's similar to HTML, but it's similar to HTML. Looks very, very similar to HTML, but there's some minute differences that allows us to inject JavaScript variables into it and utilize those variables in our JSX. Think of it like Jinja in Python, where you're able to inject Python variables into HTML files. So in here, I can say return. And then in here, again, this is JSX. It looks exactly like HTML. And I can say h1, welcome to React. And at the very bottom, I want to export default app. All right. So now in my index.js file, I can import app from, app.js. So now instead of just writing all my HTML or my JSX in here, I can call this app component. And the app component, to render it, is literally open bracket, the name of the component, space, backslash, just like this, closing bracket. Now if I, over here, if I refresh it, it says welcome to React.
Sorry, quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
If you don't put the space there, will it break?
I don't think it will, but yeah, it doesn't break there, but just common practice, usually put a space at the end of it just to make it more readable.
I have a question, Tom.
Yep.
With importing app from the app.js file, we're only importing that one function. So is that how it should be on the index.js? Like if we're going to nest more inside of app, we would do that separately, right?
So if we were going to nest more components?
Yeah, that's
here?
Yeah, component. Yes. Like we would never import multiple components into the index.js, or might we?
Correct. You rarely ever touch this file.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do, we'll run through this again, but yeah. So yeah, you only want to import the one app from here. inside the index.js file.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So this is a functional based component that Quinn kind of went over. How do I convert this into a class based component? If I wanted to create this exactly same component, but instead make it a class. Can anybody want to try to give it their best shot? No one? No one wants to do it?
Would the beginning syntax just be class app, and then you start with your curly brackets unless you're doing inheritance, which we have nothing to inherit from right now, right?
Right. So you're almost there. So the one thing we need to do is inherit the component class from the React library. So I can say import React. I should actually say import component from the React library. And this app needs to inherit all the component attributes from it. So I can do extends component. And now inside of a class component, it operates a little different. Instead of just returning something, it always ends up doing a render. So it renders, so it executes that render method, and then here it returns that JSX. So I can literally just copy this down to here. Oh, that looks awful. Format that, make it look a little neater. And so if I refresh it, am I getting, it says app is not defined right up there. Oh, so it looks like this got deleted. And depending on what library you have installed, if I just type in app, all right, let's see if this works. It automatically installed, it already automatically imported it for me. So if I refresh it, some component is not defined. That's down here on line 18. So you can see right here, it kind of renders a snapshot of the actual code. It says, welcome to React. It's a reference error. Some component is not defined. And it says like right here. So I can delete that, refresh it, and there you go. Any questions about creating a React app from scratch? Nothing? All right, let's go ahead and take a 8-minute break. Be back at 1:30, and we'll get into creating a React app, utilizing the command create React app.